story has to be, of course, about the Phoenix Suns owner, and that is, of course, Robert Sarver, suspended 1 year and fined $10 million. So, before we get started, let me read the story really quick. Sarver has been suspended for 1 year from the Phoenix Suns and fined $10 million following an investigation into a toxic workplace issue under his ownership. Sarver must, during his suspension, complete a training in a program focused on respect and appropriate conduct in the workplace. The report of the independent investigation was based on the information gathered from interviews with 320 individuals, including current and former employees. So among the findings, this is what they found out. So we don't, so you guys can kind of get the TDLR of everything. So Sarver, on at least 5 occasions during his tenure with the Suns Mercury organization, repeatedly used the N-word when recounting statements of others. Sarver engaged in instances of inequitable conduct towards female employees, made many sex-related comments in the workplace, made inappropriate comments about the physical appearance of female employees and other women, and on several occasions engaged in inappropriate physical conduct towards male employees. Sarver engaged in demeaning and harsh treatment of employees, including by yelling and cursing at them. The statement and conduct described in the findings of the independent investigation are troubling and disappointing, said NBA Commissioner Adam Silver. We believe the outcome is a right one, taking into all account the fate, circumstances, and context brought to the light by comprehensive investigation of this 18-year period, and our commitment to uphold proper standards in the NBA workplace. Again, the rest of it is just what Adam Silver and Sarver kind of said. So, Pete, it's a little bit of a heavy topic to talk about, but it must be kind of reported on just because of the nature of this whole situation. Did you think at the end of the day that this suspension and fine and punishment, really, do you think the punishment fit the crime? Or maybe not the crime is the right word, but do you think it is appropriate what he got?
So here I'm going to give a two-part answer. I think it's not enough, one, right? But and then here is my kind of answer to Tar Heel Nation's question. A lot of the other people asking, in response to this, and how did this guy not get treated the way Ronald or what was his name? Robert Sterling?
Donald Sterling.
Donald. You're right. Donald
Donald.
Sterling. How did he not get the Donald Sterling treatment and just be removed? It's very, very tough for me to believe that the NBA didn't punish him to the fullest extent possible based on what they had evidence-wise. It behooves nobody in the NBA to keep this guy around. And this has been coming for years and years. I mean, I have heard, awful numerous things about Robert Sarver literally for probably the last decade at this point, just talking about how awful this guy is. And it's tough in the sense that you would hope that that's enough, right? But when it comes down to it, unless there's, direct video, whatever the evidence is, and I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
they've released any of that evidence to the public. I don't think they have. I think just with this announcement coming out, maybe things will start to come out, but it's not enough. It's not enough because realistically, all of the NBA would be better if this guy wasn't there. Not only
Yeah.
just in terms purely for the human element of it, right? Just he's a bad dude, by all accounts. Everything we know about him, and obviously this article, what it's reporting, this dude is the worst, right? But
Mm-hmm.
beyond even just that, him not being an owner in the NBA is a good thing for everybody. He's famous for not spending money on contracts. He's famous for, being a bad dude in general.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough for me to believe the NBA didn't do as much as they could. So I can't really fault them because I think they would have if they could have.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't feel like enough. It doesn't feel like enough. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of felt the same way, doing a little bit more research on it, during my lunch break and doing a little bit more, just kind of finding out everything about, who Sarver was as a person. I mean, it does kind of baffle, and maybe it's not surprising to some people. You know what? No, it is surprising because I think what's disappointing is that, Donald Sterling's situation was handled by Adam Silver already, right? Because that was kind of the
Mm-hmm.
first thing that Adam Silver really had to deal with as being a commissioner of the NBA. And the fact that, again, we're in the same boat and situation where a guy that has continuously said the things that he has said, especially when we talk about the workplace environment. I mean, to me, it's 2022. This is no longer, the 80s, the 70s. I know as cliche as it is to sound, it makes no sense to me why there would be no, you know, giving up of the team. And I don't know if it's because of some
Hmm.
legality situation where they can't, make you get rid of a team, but in the best interest of ownership, the best interest of the NBA, they definitely have to disassociate themselves with the owner. Um, and the fact that they did that with Donald Sterling, but couldn't do that with this guy, and the fact that Miles Leonard, another an NBA basketball player who said the stuff that he said on a live stream, basically is blacklisted from the NBA and really hasn't gotten a job since
Hmm.
the Miami Heat. How did he not get basically the boot? And that to me is what is kind of disappointing in all this, because again, he said the things that he said. It's very disparaging, it's hurtful, and it's not a culture where it's inviting, it's not welcoming, and it's frustrating to see that this guy continues to get a hall pass basically, because I mean, what is a 1 year suspension for an owner? Can't stay at the arena. I mean, he's fine with that. He's staying in this palatial estate wherever he's living in Phoenix, Arizona. I don't know if he's living in Phoenix
Yeah.
or Tempe or wherever he's living, enjoying, the lavish lifestyle that he has, while basically, a $10 million fine. I mean, you could say that's a tax write off. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it could be one of those things where you
Yeah.
look at it and it's basically just a slap on the wrist. $10 million is probably like $1,000 fine to a person and that has to pay. That has a is not as rich as the owner, right? A working person would
Yeah.
probably, it's $1,000 equivalent, at least to me. Again, maybe it's a little bit more, maybe it's a little bit less, but I don't know. I think it is disappointing to see that this guy got a pass, and the fact that it was under Silver's, uh, kind of blessing, under his, watch, is a little disappointing.
I mean, that gets me back to what I was saying. I don't really understand how there's a universe in which they had enough evidence to get rid of this guy. They wouldn't do it, you know?
Yeah.
I just, it doesn't really behoove anybody. Nobody likes this guy. Nobody's defending Robert Sarver. There's no owners out there defending him. There's none of
Hmm.
that type of stuff going on. So, I mean, that's one thing too, is like, what even is a year suspension for one of these guys? I know you just said it, but I mean it literally. Like, what is that? What does that mean? Is he not in charge of the team for a year? It's still, he owns it.
Yeah.
Like, he still has to partake in the signing of contracts and things of that nature, right? So it seems strange. Like, when I first read it, I was curious, like, how strong this suspension is. Like, are they really like locking him out of doing anything with his team? On top of the
Hmm.
fine, or are they positioning it to make it so he would just be best off selling it? Like, that was
Hmm.
one of my
Yeah.
questions. It just, but when you stop and you keep looking at it, none of it seems like enough for him to do that. If he really doesn't want to sell it, why would this be enough to merit selling it? It's 1 year off and a $10 million fine. That's a mid-level buyout, basically.
Yeah.
That's like, that's nothing. So he's not, like I mentioned, he's not the richest owner. He doesn't spend his money very much. So maybe the 10 million is a big deal to him. I would be shocked if it was. But I have to wonder, like, what's the long term plan? Like, can they just welcome this guy back with open arms, like, to back into the NBA next year? Or what does the members of the team feel like?
Yeah.
It seems like such a mess, man. It seems like such a mess. I mean, this is one of
Hmm.
those things where the punishment, they almost got locked themselves in between a rock and a hard place. Like, now you have everybody on every side is upset. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure what this is, man. I'm not sure. I just, like I keep saying, I can't say it enough. We knew that Donald Sterling was a bad dude, based on that recording that came out of, I believe it
Hmm.
was like his girlfriend at the time or somebody he
Yeah.
was with.
The mistress.
There wasn't very much evidence that came out besides that, which, mind you, I'm not arguing that doesn't make him a bad guy. That's enough. He should have been
Yeah.
gone, right? Rightfully so. My question is, like, that wasn't a ton of stuff if you compare it to this list of stuff for Robert Sarver. So I'm very curious if they have any like video footage. I don't know how they wouldn't in these corporate offices, but like video footage or audio recordings of
Hmm.
employees doing stuff. Like if that stuff comes out and it's anywhere near the same as the Donald Sterling stuff
Yeah.
and they didn't get rid of him, the NBA is in for a world of hurt. And we live in the day and age of leaking stuff, you know? So I'll be very interested to see how this progresses.
Yeah.
How the Phoenix Suns players are going to respond. Has any of the members of the Phoenix Suns said anything today?
I haven't seen anything so far on Twitter. I haven't seen anything in terms of an official statement from any of the team captains. I think that they're kind of going as is right now.
Yeah.
Um, and I just think that at the end of the day, they're going to have to figure out, you know, how to play. Because I mean, again, we saw this before with CP3 with Donald Sterling, and now again with a different owner this time. You know, it
Mhm.
just it boggles my mind that we still live in a world and we still have people that are like this. I mean, again, it it is a frustrating thing to think about when, you know, the things that we want to talk about, you and I, people in the media, we don't want to talk about this guy. We shouldn't really
No.
know. We really shouldn't know who this guy is.
Yeah.
You know, to
No, we
some
don't.
extent.
We don't want to hear about it? I just don't want to hear anything about this guy. Like when it comes down to it, you should be all for forwarding the game, forwarding, just social progress, whatever it is, all these positive things that you have the platform to do. That's the only thing I want to hear from these guys. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And if you are reaching into the lives of NBA fans like this and this despicable of a human being,
Hmm.
I feel like it's truly like we need to reach a point in time where these leagues look past just their own um,
Hmm.
their own like want and need for each other to be protected. Like that's what all these owners are doing. When it comes down to it, the only people looking out for these dudes are each other,
Yeah.
realistically. So you have in each given league, you have 30 or so, give or take a couple,
Hmm.
30 rich dudes who are defending each other, and that's enough to get guys like this out of these situations.
Yeah.
And that's so incredibly frustrating, man. Like that's the 0.0001% when it comes
Yeah.
down to it. So it's tough. And here I actually have a little bit more information on this real quick. Let me just
Yeah.
read this out. Um so according to ESPN's Baxter Holmes, Sarver will work with the NBA to find an interim governor for the Suns to fill in during suspension. So he is literally out of the team. He can't do anything with the team. They're going to
Okay.
find somebody to handle all of it, mutually agreed upon by the NBA and Sarver, which
Be the
I think
contract
that
signer.
alone is, yeah, I mean that to me is already you're doing too much for this guy. Why should he have a say? I mean, I guess it is his money, so in certain sense, like sure. One last paragraph I'm going to read real quick.
Yep.
Among the investigation's findings, the NBA said Sarver engaged. So this is kind of what you were just saying. Let me skip to the end. According to Holmes and ESPN colleague Adrian Wojnarowski, I always read that guy's
Mike
name so
Wazowski.
funny when I see it. Adrian Mike Wazowski. Sarver was unaccepting, quote unquote, of the idea that he deserved a year-long suspension and a $10 million fine. Like that. See, that's the point where if you have any morality as a league, any backbone to standing up to these rich billionaire guys, that's the point where you stop looking to help them out in any way. Like he's not even remotely apologetic anything for all this stuff, and
Hmm.
that's just not the era we live in, man. Beyond whatever anybody thinks about cancel culture, beyond any of that, nobody wants to work in a place where this is how your boss treats you.
Yeah.
Nobody. And I personally am so sick and tired of the mentality of that's the way it is, and these are the people who pay your checks and pay for your rent and your food,
Hmm.
and they get to run their business how they want. That's absolutely just nonsense. It's just nonsense. We should
Hmm.
stop supporting these people who put that kind of energy in all of our lives and stop defending them. Like I've
Yeah.
seen people like actively out there not defending this guy, but also just more making the devil's advocate case of like he can run his business. Like, no, you shouldn't be able to do that. You really shouldn't. Because when it comes down to it, the NBA and these sports leagues, more than just about any other place where you might have a boss, the owner, the final decision maker, is like a fraction of what the actual business is.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be making any money if it wasn't for the team and the players on the team and all the people who run the organization that he's hired and pays. None of that would exist if it wasn't for those people. So,
Yeah.
it's tough, man. It's tough. I'm so sick of this guy. I'm glad he's going to be gone for at least a year. I wish it was longer forever, though.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I think we can both kind of come to the conclusion that the NBA got it wrong here. And the NBA really needs to, again, I think what this shows to me, Pete, is that I think it shows favoritism. And it shows favoritism in the fact that the owners, when Donald Sterling was going through whatever he was going through, with the Clippers at the time, they probably didn't like him as an owner. They probably despised him because he's probably one of those guys that they probably didn't like, probably annoyed them. Whereas I feel like this guy, the owners like him for whatever reason. The owners like, well, it's kind of one of those old adages, or when you think about, would you really, if your best friend does a bad thing, you're gonna be like, well, no, that's not really him. He doesn't really do it that way. But all the evidence points to that. So I just think it's kind of one of those situations where they just needed to keep that same energy that they did. Especially, what disappoints me the most, and I think I talked about it already, is the fact that Adam Silver was in charge of the Donald Sterling situation, but was not able to give that same punishment to Sarver. Makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah, it truly doesn't make any sense. But I mean, it's super unfortunate because the last thing I'll say for this is you think about what if just a normal person, anybody who's not an owner, a player, whatever, anybody that's not worth millions plus, right? All it takes is you to say one thing out of turn, one thing, and your whole life is kaput in certain cases, right? And in certain instances, it's totally justifiable, right? But when you compare the punishment for this guy to even just the way that we treat the average person who makes a slip up, like what room is there for actual growth for individual human beings when this is what the value we put on each other, right? Like this guy has either ruined or at least made all these people that work for this organization's life so much harder. Said these awful things that any of them would have been fired in an instant if they were caught saying. And he can just get away with it. That's the true travesty of all of it. Like these people have to suffer and understand deep down that they're not worth as much as this guy is.
Yeah.
And I think that that's such a bad precedent for the NBA to set. That's such a bad precedent. If anybody I don't know. I got to get off this because it gets me so frustrated, man. Like this is, and I don't want to get on a big political high horse. I won't do it. But this is kind of our country right now. We have all these people at the top and they get away with stuff like this.
Yeah, it is frustrating. And really quick, I'm just going to read Tar Heel Nation's comments. David Stern would have sent Sarver to the Shadow Realm. I've had enough of Adam Silver's player empowerment soft era. To me, Tar Heel Nation, that's more so on the fact that it's Adam Silver. Adam Silver was the one who banned Donald Sterling, like I said before. So, I'll agree to disagree on that one. Did you guys think that Sarver cost Steve Nash a ring by trading Joe Johnson to save money?
I mean, not necessarily that instance. Like trading Joe Johnson to save money, maybe, right? But he certainly cost Steve Nash a ring by not spending money. He cost a lot of people rings by not spending money. That's kind of Sarver. I mean, the 06, 07 Suns, that era, that team was easily one of the three best teams in the league for 2 or 3 straight seasons, and they really definitely should have won a championship. But when it comes down to it, that's how Sarver runs a team. Yeah. That's just it.
Yeah. It is.
I mean, we just watched the DeAndre Ayton saga.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. We just watched all that. All it amounted to, they played hardball with this guy not to pay him. What realistically, DeAndre Ayton deserved the max. I mean, whether you like him or not, in today's league, players of his quality get the max. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
And they did not want to pay this guy. And then all it amounted to was matching and getting a 4-year deal at the max instead of the 5-year, which would have been a better deal. He's just a terrible owner in general for the league. It just doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense.
Yeah, it is frustrating. And again, people, let us know in the comment section down below. What do you guys make of the story? Again, Sarver suspended a year, fined $10 million for all the accusations you can read here on the board. Man, look at me in teacher mode. You can read all this stuff that's here on the screen. So let us know in the comment section down below. Did the punishment fit what happened? Agree, disagree? Let us know in the comment section down below.